You're listening to Under the Shell Podcast, the best in America.
Welcome to Under the Shell, presented by Testudo Times. I'm Brendan Weissel.
Sam Jane.
Michael Big Mike House.
And guys, you are going to be listening to all things Maryland basketball on this episode. The best team potentially in College Park is coming soon. This week, the boys in the red, white, and gold will tip off with this week's guest on the call, Walt Williams, coming on to Under the Shell to talk about the upcoming season, his role as an announcer, and what it was like to play under Gary Williams and in the Cole Fieldhouse. Take it away, Walt.
Our next guest is one of the most decorated alumni of Maryland basketball. He was a consensus second-team All-American and first-team All-ACC player during his time with the Terps, and currently still has the record for the most points scored ever in a season, as well as the most points per game. We could keep going on about his accolades, but that might take this entire episode. So we are just so honored to have on the Wizard, Walt Williams. Walt, welcome on to the show.
Oh, man, thanks for having me, man. It's an honor to be on the show, fellas.
So how much have you been keeping up with Terps basketball recently? You still going to be calling games with Johnny this upcoming season?
Yes. So, I do. I'm there calling the games for the home games anyway, and I travel to the Big Ten when they made a Big Ten tourney. So, and we're lucky enough to get to the NCAA, then I travel with them then as well.
How do you think the roster is looking so far for this year? They got a bunch of returners from last season, Jameer Young, Dante Scott, Julian Reese, and have a really good freshman class right now. Kind of what do you see from the team?
Well, I'll tell you what, I think that this team has a good combo of veteran guys coming back, just like you said. And more so, the veteran guys that are coming back, they were focal points last year. So you have a nucleus coming back, and then you have young guys, from high school, the kid from Paul VI or St. Francis. Then you got guys who were not impactful on the team last year. Young guys that are going to have an opportunity to see. We're going to see if they had some growth in this off season, and see if they have a chance to impact the team. Because last season you had some guys that could put the ball in the hole, that could get busy. But what you didn't have is consistent shooters. So when you have four guys on the floor that can get busy, put on the floor and create, you need two guys to space the floor so that these guys can create. We didn't have that. So it kind of took away from the players who were creative, and it kind of handcuffed them a little bit. So now this team seems like it fits a little bit more, where you have a combo of guys who can create, and then you have the shooters. So I think this team should be very good. You still haven't answered the question in the middle, the depth in the middle. Who do you have behind Juju? And so that's still a question that needs to be answered.
Out of those guys that you talked about, the guys last year that maybe weren't contributing but could take that leap this year, who are you kind of looking at? Because like you said, there's established young guys and there's established old guys, and I think the ceiling kind of rests on those middle of the pack. What player do you think is the most poised to take the leap?
You know what? I'm not going to call out any specific guy, because the thing we want to see. I think Noah Batchelor, he was a guy who, when he came here, we looked at him as the guy who could shoot the lights out, who could space the floor. But it didn't pan out that way. So we're looking for him to take that next step, that maturation, take that next step and be able to get into that rotation and be someone who's consistently contributing. So, the guys who are normally shooters, they are just shooters. They don't bring anything else to the table. So that's the hurdle that you have to overcome. You have to be able to shoot the ball to space the floor, but also you have to do other things out there, contribute on the defensive end, get some rebounds, things like that, to keep yourself on the floor.
So when did you kind of start doing the broadcast and kind of start doing the calling games, and how did you get into that?
Man, I've been doing this since Coach Williams was here, man. So, I don't even know what year I started, but hey, I love the game of basketball. Always wanted to be up close and personal, having connections with the players, being able to be someone that's right there for them to for advice or what have you. And so I just felt like when the opportunity came for me to join the radio team with Johnny Holiday and Chris Nocky, I jumped at the opportunity. Coach Williams was allowing me to come into the huddles during halftime. During timeouts, and that really wasn't being done at the radio level. On TV it was, but not at the radio level. So I appreciate that a lot, because they helped me into the radio game and kind of be up close and personal and see what goes on in the huddles, but more importantly, being able to deliver the message to the audience, the listeners. I just enjoying the game, hanging out with Johnny and Naki. We just have a blast. We have so much fun out there, and for me, I enjoy it. It's like it's watching the game and then being able to talk about it. So there's nothing greater than that. So I have a blast with it.
Well, was that something that it took a while to kind of get used to, calling games, or was that kind of like, I don't know, just a flawless transition into that new career path?
Well, for me, it was something that was, pretty seamless. I was always a person that was, I was a student of the game. So I wasn't just out there just playing. I was always, it was a mental for me, always learning the game, watching players, older players back in the day, all of that. So for me, I don't even have to do that much studying or anything like that, man, because it's just a natural thing for me to watch the game and be able to deliver it at how I see the game. And so normally I don't see the game the way the normal person view the game. And so I just try to give them a more in-depth look than what it is just how I view the game. It's not me trying to be more in-depth or whatever. It's just how I see the game. And it's just different because I played the way I played, and also the approach that I brought to the game.
Kind of taking a step back here now, going into your Maryland career a little bit. You come to Maryland in 1988. The program, they're going through the, still the after effects of the Len Bias death, that the sanctions from the Bob Wade era. Why did you decide to still come to Maryland with all of that going on?
Well, you know what, man? When I was a little kid, I was a Georgetown Hoya fan. So I did not grow up a Terp fan. It was the Hoyas, man. And then my father, he's from North Carolina, and so the Terps were playing Carolina one day, and he took me to a game. And man, I was just watching the game, and then I saw Len Bias pull up for this jumper, and it just looked like the prettiest thing I've ever seen in my life, man. And I was just zoned in on that dude, and his game was just mesmerizing to me. And all of a sudden, I started, when the sports shows would come on at night, I would, stay up to watch him. And all of a sudden, lo and behold, I was a Terp fan, and so from that point, I was just like, I wanted to come here. I wanted to follow in those footsteps because I saw the impact that he had in my neighborhood. We would go out on the blacktop and pretend to be him, and stuff like that. I wanted the kids to do that. I wanted the kids to pretend to be me, from the neighborhood. And so I thought that I can get that done at the University of Maryland. So that kind of led me here. But also, back then, 18 years old, man, I was not ready to leave my mom, man. Mama's boy all the way. So, I was not ready to separate from her. And then also, thirdly, I wanted to I wanted to, a lot of the kids look at playing at home as this burden. They need to go away to kind of get the pressure as they see it or what have you. For me, I wanted all of that. I wanted to show all of the kids I grew up with, all of the dudes I played against, all of that. I wanted them all to see me grow, get better and better. Cause I knew that, I was very competitive. I was gonna go after it. I was gonna go at it, and I knew that I played against the best competition in the country at the high school level. So I knew that I would be prepared to go out there. But I just wanted to show, that's why I had the high socks and all that swag, all of that stuff, man, because I wanted people to see where I came from. I wanted people to notice that it's a 6'8" point guard out here doing his thing, and so I knew that that was a unique thing, and I wanted the country to take notice.
You guys, obviously, I saw that you were a high school coach at some point, an assistant at Sherwood, correct?
Yes.
And I was reading an article where it talked about how you lost your father at the age of 22 to cancer right after you were drafted into the NBA. Can you take us through, obviously that's a crazily emotional experience, but from a player's perspective, you see a lot of these guys and it's just like personal decision based on how they handle, their job, but also the, extreme sadness and emotions that come with it. How did you kind of play through that at all? And if you did, what was that like when you stepped out into the court, especially because I read that your dad was there at almost every game?
Yeah. So, man, before with the national anthem, at the end of the national anthem, I would just let out this scream because I just wanted to signal to him that this game about to start. I'm about to go to work out here, after he had passed. And that just meant something for me internally, man. He was always there. It wasn't necessarily that he was there. It was just, he was a man I looked up to. I thought he was Superman. And I wanted to show him, I wanted to just prove something to him. I just wanted to show him that, I could be great, and I remember after when I was in high school, I didn't play in my freshman year. I was the ball boy, I tried out for the team and I got cut because I missed the last day of tryouts. And so I hung around and I didn't play until grades came, and then I was able to play on the team then for about the last 5 or 6 games. So once I was able to do that, after the game, I would see my dad, man, and he would have this weird look on his face, and I would think to myself, what is he looking at me like that for? But as a dad, I look back on that, and it was just a look of pride. He was so proud of me of getting it done. And regardless of I didn't know what that look was, I was trying to get that look after every game, and so I was pouring it on, because like I said, I just wanted to show him. And so I would say, he passed away right before, I had to go to Sacramento, report to Sacramento. As a matter of fact, when you look at the video of me at the draft, he wasn't there. He was at home. He was sick, so I had my mom and my aunt and my little niece with me, but he couldn't be there because he was sick. He was suffering from cancer. Then he was going through, symptoms and things like that. So I never really enjoyed it. People look back on that and say, man, you were playing in the NBA. And it was like a dream. It was a fairy tale, but I never enjoyed the process, man, because I was in a state of depression almost. I was so sad, and I don't think the whole time I played, I don't think I ever got out of that cloud. It was something that was always there, something that was always missing, that I could never shake, and I knew I had to be able to get things done for my family and provide for my family, but that same competitive spirit, that extra, it was just it was vacant, and I was mourning my dad, and I never got over that. I don't think my whole career, in my whole pro career.
I guess, what do you think about, playing in front of your dad and your family, I guess, was so meaningful like meaningful for you then if, after he passed, just those games didn't mean as much? What do you think about it was just meant so much to you?
I don't know, man. It was something about like you get a bucket, man. There's thousands of people screaming for you, but I turn over there. I was just looking for my mom and dad, and my sister, whoever she brought to the game with her or something like that, and my girlfriend. That I would be looking for those people who meant the most to me. And I was just I was playing for them. I didn't go into these college games thinking that, oh, if I scored this amount of points, I could get to the pros or what have you. I just went to every game thinking that, oh man, my mom and dad gonna be out here. They're gonna see me today, and I'm gonna show them today. I'm gonna show them I'm the baddest dude out here. I'm gonna show everybody that's watching today I'm the baddest dude, and that was it. It was just about that game, and then you just do that game after game, and hey, it was just good enough for me to be a pro. At the end of that. But it was game to game for me, and I was just just trying to show them this past summer was my family's 53rd family reunion, man. We had down in Carolina. And we do this every year. So I've always had an opportunity to see my family. I've never, like when you go to the pros, you hear the horror stories, like family come out of the woodwork. I know my family, man. And so it's always been a prideful thing knowing that, and I'll tell this to you, viewers, that as a young boy, I didn't know this, right? Know this at the time, but being in a family reunion environment, you're around family all the time, and you're around people who love you unconditionally. All I was doing out there was just playing. We played some football, whatever. But you have your aunts and uncles to pull you to the side and ask you how you doing or whatever. And I'm just waiting to get back to going and playing, right? But inside, I didn't realize this at the time. But inside, what was happening was I was understanding that it was so many people, not just my mother and father, not just my immediate family, but it was so many people that loved me unconditional. And what that did was made me fearless in my pursuit of success, man. I didn't have no fear of failing because I knew that if I did, people won't love me anyway. So I just went after things with 100%, man, and I didn't care about failing at all. And so that didn't handcuff me any. And it was because of my family. My family is so inspirational for me, my friends. And so they mean a lot to me.
It seems like there's a lot of players that when they get drafted into the professional leagues, there's a lot of distractions out there. They get lost in the spotlight. Seems like you were able to avoid that. You had a really strong rookie year. Did you see that with other players getting distracted, or did you yourself see those opportunities out there and you had that family to guide you and kind of get you away from all that?
Well, you absolutely see the distractions. It's so much, you're a professional athlete. And back in my day, most of us came from humble beginnings. And so you don't have any experience with life in that lane. And so it's just you're learning a whole new way of life. And at your young and impressionable age, 20, in your early 20s, And so, and you're seeing finances that you never even dreamed of. So it's absolutely a learning curve and something that you have to mature in pretty early on, so I saw that. And but I think for me, it was just about the hoop part of it. I really enjoyed it. I wanted to compete. I couldn't wait to compete against the best. And it was a great experience. But for me, I never really got used to the hoopla of it. People people would fall out seeing you and like, oh my goodness, or your autograph. So I never really got used to that part because I just don't see myself in that way, But it's always flattering to have something you put your heart and soul into that people recognize that. So it was a great experience, a great ride.
What was the funniest story you saw from a teammate or opposing player of kind of getting involved in those distractions? You know what I'm saying?
Let me think of a PG one, man.
You got to tell us the We're 13 podcast. Come on now.
You know what? I tell you what. I this was one of the this is one of the weirdest experiences I've ever had, but you look back on it and you think to yourself, man, you look at professional athletes and you think to yourself, man, they can think that sometimes they're bigger than life or what have you. But I was lucky enough in my family. My family, they treat me the same. You know, I'm just junior to my family, so I'm not the wizard at all to any of my family. So, but it's things that happen that will, spin your head around. And I remember going to a Ravens game one time, me and Joe Smith, and we were just going to the game, and then all of a sudden on our route going to the stadium, we had a police escort. Police pulled up beside us, and they recognized it was us. And next thing you know, they was leading us through the streets, man. And it was just man, a young boy, and things like that is happening, and they holding up people at the lights, and while we see like we were the president or something, and so and the great thing about it is that when people see success, they always talk about the hate and things like that, man. I could just say for the most part, I've always received love from this area, the DMV. They've always shown me love, and that's why I was always proud to represent. Like I said earlier, with the high Sox, you see the whole league, they put the three up when they hit the threes. I'm the originator of all of that right there. And so it's great to be able to watch the game now and then see these young boys. My impact is still on the game. I see kids out there still wearing the high Sox, still putting up the three signs when they hitting threes. And so that was just something that I feel that I had for the game out there, and that's something I naturally did. And then now to see that that's still in the game, it's just, man, it's awesome to see for sure.
I kind of wanted to ask about playing against Jordan in the NBA. You were fortunate enough. You were able to play against that 96 Bulls team that won 72 games in the first round of the playoffs. They swept you guys. But what was that like being able to play against, probably the greatest competitor of all time, Jordan?
Yeah, I tell you what, man. So I got traded halfway through the season, and so I stayed in the hotel for the second remaining half of the season. So I didn't even have a place there, And so when we played the Bulls stayed in the same hotel that I was staying in. So I actually stayed on the floor, and Jordan stayed around the corner on the same floor that I stayed on. And so those dudes, I mean, you would hear them all hours of the night playing cards and all of this stuff, and then the next day he go out there and give our asses 40, So it was like, oh my God, he was up all night just that last night, and this dude got all this crazy energy out here. So, but he was just another animal. People talk about his desire or whatever. I think that, guys that get to that level, like I said, in my day, they coming from humble beginnings. I would argue that the desire at that level, it was people that match his, but he had physical talents that was unnatural. He was maybe an inch shorter than me, but he had the quickness of a Muggsy Bogues, 5'3" type guy. Strong, very athletic, and more importantly, his knowledge of the game, not just the game as a whole, but his in-game knowledge was just off the charts, and how he could recognize situations and games and adapt and adjust, and how that would impact, how he could impact the whole team doing those things. So he was just at another level, not just with his physical talents, but the mental approach, but also he was so infectious. It would impact the team. His teammates got better. They were better defenders being around him, better all around players playing with him. And so I think that part goes underrated in how he impacted guys on that level.
What was some of the best trash talk you heard from him?
Well, I tell you what, this one game, you mentioned the 72-10 season. So if you remember, the following season, they were 69-13, almost back-to-back 70-win seasons. One of those losses was against the Toronto Raptors. I mean, we were sorry too, man. We probably won like 30 games that year, right? but we got to win against them in Toronto, right? And so this particular game, Darryl Walker was my coach, and he switched assignments on us. So normally I check Pippen. I was a small forward, and Doug Christie was a 2 guard. And so he would normally guard Jordan. But this particular game, I was guarding Jordan, and he was guarding Pippen. And so my assignment was whatever reason why he did that is because I'm taller than Jordan. So he wanted a lot of length on him, push him baseline. And my center and power forward was Marcus Camby and Carlos Rogers, both thin wingspan, like 8-foot wingspan guys, 6'11", 7-foot guys, long guys. So my assignment was just push them baseline to the double team, and we got long guys. I'm taller than Jordan and another long guy coming. So Jordan, he started to anticipate what was going on, so he would stop and pull up. Well, I anticipated what he was doing, so I was anticipating I was on that jumper, and he happened to be off that night. We beat him. He might have had 12, 13 points that night, and I had like 20 something. So the reporters was they were lighting him up. I locked him up, and then I bust his ass on the other end. And so we unfortunately it's like a LeBradford Smith story, man. If you watched his he was not making things up. Those things happen for real. I'm a live story of that. So it was like 2 or 3 weeks later we played them down in Chicago, and right before the tip, same thing. I'm guarding Jordan, and Doug is guarding Pippen. And right before the tip, Jordan looks at me and he goes, yeah, remember that trash you was talking last game, right? And so, hey, we all pros. And so I'm looking at him like, yeah, hey, let's get it. But inside, I was thinking, dude, I didn't say anything. That was the reporters. That was not me. It's not one quote of me saying anything. But anyway, needless to say, he gave me like 40, I think like 44 or 40 something. And I don't even think he played in the fourth quarter. It was in only 3 quarters. But hey, you know what? If you win that first game back, I have that one to put on my trophy shelf. So Michael Jordan is incredible.
Walked out the locker room and said, "Lace him up, Walt. It's gonna be a long night."
Yeah, man, that dude is incredible. His quickness, man, and the thing about him is he could pull up off the dribble. So pull-ups, somebody's doing spot up shooting and dribbling all the way to the basket. Defensively, you can kind of anticipate when that shot is going to go up. But off the dribble, you're his puppet. You control when you're going to pull up, when you're going to stop and pull. So that just makes that act a lot more difficult to guard. But then when you're prolific at it, I mean, that's what made him such difficulty to stop on the offensive end, man.
Right. Well, you obviously he went to North Carolina, and you played at Maryland during the ACC era, and he played in Maryland during the Cole Fieldhouse era. In terms of Xfinity compared to Cole, what are your thoughts on it? And then what are some of your best stories from the Fieldhouse that you remember as kind of like, damn, like this place got bumping, or we've heard stories about how water used to like trickle it, like it was not necessarily a great spot to be in. Can you tell us about, what you're looking at?
So I tell you what, Xfinity is definitely a next level up. But man, I'm telling you right now, when I walk in there, I don't get the same feeling as the Cole Fieldhouse. Nothing was like the Cole Fieldhouse. It was a little dark in there. It was like the lighting wasn't correct or something in there. And I think it's set 14,500. But some games you would walk in there and all the seats would be filled, but then they would let you stand up around the walkway at the top. So you'll run in a tunnel and you'll run out the tunnel and you'll see so many people, but then you'll see the people at the top, standing up to watch. And man, it just chills. It sent chills up my arms right now just thinking about it, man. It was nothing like that. And in the roar of the crowd, it was right there on you. So Xfinity is a little bit more spacious. So when the crowd is screaming, it's not bam, right on you. But in a Cole Fieldhouse, I mean, you could feel it. You could feel it in your body. You could feel it shaking. And I'll tell you, this one game I had broken my leg, and I had missed probably like maybe 15 games or so. And I remember I suited up. It was only like 2 or 3 games left. We didn't have anything to play for because I believe that in our tournament game, we were one of the lower seeds or what have you, so we didn't have anything to play for. But I just wanted to play. I had been sitting out 15 games, man, and we still had some games left. So it was just torture sitting on the sideline watching games. So, my leg wasn't at full strength, but it was healed. I just needed to get it stronger. So I didn't care about that. I was just like, I'm healed. I'm not going to get injured again. I can limp a little bit out here and play, and so it wasn't like a limp from hurting. It was just a limp because it wasn't at full strength. So, but I was ready to go out and practice a few days, so it was okay. So I asked Coach Williams, could I play in the game? He was like, okay. And I suited up, and he did not play me in that first half. We was playing against Wake Forest. He did not play me in the first half, and I was so pissed. And I was like, Coach, I talked to Coach. I was like, Coach, I got suited up to play, man. Can you just give me a shot? And man, I'll never forget it. In the second half, maybe like halfway through, he subbed me in there. And up until that point, when I'm coming in the game, when I'm playing in the game, I don't hear the crowd. I'm zoned into the game. When I'm shooting free throws, people screaming, that never bothered me at all, because I can't hear it. It was just background noise to me. But this game right here, when I subbed into the game, the crowd was going crazy. And I walked in, it was so shocking because I had never felt that before. But I mean, I was almost shaking how loud the crowd was. And man, I just felt such an appreciation because, like I said, I had missed so many games, and I felt like the crowd was just so happy to see me come back. And I never forget, I hit a crucial shot, and I was dribbling to the middle. I shot it off one leg. I hit a three off of one leg, but I really was playing off of one leg because it was my leg was a little weak, and I didn't just I was just conscious of it, but I would never forget the feeling that I had inside when I subbed it to the game. The crowd had never impacted me like that before, so that right there is always a memory for me. And then one of the other biggest memories was going through that streak where I scored those 30 points against those ACC teams. The weird thing about those games is most of the time I didn't even know I had 30 until after the game was over with. And so my teammates, when I would get interviewed after the game, I would run into the locker room later than my teammates. So I'd come into the locker room, my teammates would have the stats ready. They would tell me, oh, you had 30 today. And so that made me feel great because, all of us were great high school players, and you get that sense of, man, am I gunning out here too much? Am I shooting too much? Like, how does the team feel? Even though the coach wants you to be aggressive, whatever, you still had these moments where you say, man, is it okay with my teammates? And they were very reassuring for me in that sense. And that made me even more aggressive to go out there and get buckets like that, man. And the thing about it was that I thought going into games that Coach Williams, I thought that he thought that I was the best player on the floor. And I thought that he was just so honest about things. I mean, he was raw with it. He would say whatever was on his mind, he wasn't, he didn't really keep it in, he'd say it to you, and he was just so honest like that. And I thought that he thought that I was the best player on the floor. And I really took that to heart, and I tried to show him every time, man. More than anything, like into the game. And the game, you out there, you playing, and the fans react and things like that. But just into the game, man, I was just trying to show Coach Williams more than anybody in the whole gym that, yeah, whatever you believe about me, man, you are correct. I just had so much respect for him, and I just wanted to show him that, I was the best, like I thought he was thinking.
So it seems like the two most important figures in the arena were your family and Coach Williams. It makes sense why your family would be so important to you, but kind of what about Coach Williams, about the way he coached you, the way, brought you onto the team? How is that so impactful for you? Why did he mean so much to you as well?
Well, I'll tell you what, also my friends, man, because my teammates, they were like my family. And that was one of the biggest reasons why I stayed, because I just couldn't fathom transferring to another school and then leaving my teammates. we had been through so much together. I mean, man, those are my guys for sure. We still talk to this day, just about every day. We have a group line about like 20 some guys, man. So that's how close we were, And so, but for Coach Williams, for me, man, it's just so much that I could say, but I'll sum it up in two little quick stories with Coach Williams meant to me. So this one time we were playing Clemson, and I started off the game. I mean, I was bricklaying out there. I could have built a 2-story house. I mean, bricks I was shooting, man. It was like I started off like 0 for 8, 0 for 9, right? And this one play we came down, somebody swung into me, and I had an open shot, and I passed it up. And we ended up, I don't know if we made the shot or not, but when the team got the rebound, went down the other end, we got the rebound, bam, he called the timeout. And while I was walking towards the bench, he came out on the basketball court, and he was yelling at me, man. He was yelling at me, but he was saying, we're not going to win unless you shoot. And I was thinking to myself, what the hell is he talking about? I just missed 9 in a row. He meant unless I score, not if I shoot. And then in that next moment, I went, dang, this dude must think I am really good, man. I missed that many shots, and he still want me to get at it. And then I was like, yeah. I do need to get more aggressive to help us win it, So, in that moment right there, when I doubted myself, from speaking with him, I just went to a next level, right? That's one. This one time we were playing Duke, we were losing by maybe 17, 18 points. And I was the point guard, and he switched me to the off guard for the last half, for the second half or whatever. And he drew up this play, and one of the timeouts, he drew up this play where Kevin McClinton, he was the point guard. He would pick a side that he was in the middle of the court. He would pick a side that he was going to dribble to. I would start on a block, and whatever side he would go to, I would run off a down screen to that side. And then he would give me a dribble handoff, right? And then I would shoot a 3. So if you can envision that, it is a crazy play, because when I'm running off of a down screen, when he hands me the ball, my back is to the basket. So I have to catch it and spin and shoot the ball at the same time from the 3-point line, right? He called this play about 5, 6, 7 times in a row down the stretch, and I hit about 3 or 4 of them, but it was a crazy shot. And the next day in practice, we would run over plays in practice. So we would start off going through our specialty plays, then we would go through our normal execution plays, the plays that we would run throughout the game that were not specialty situation plays. And that play that he drew up the game before was one of our normal plays. So I was thinking to myself, we was trying to come back. We needed to get shots up. They were a very good defensive team, and it was hard to defend, a dribble handoff like that from the 3-point line, right? But I was thinking to myself, man, dude, this is like a normal play for us. Like, you think I can make this shot like on a regular basis, And then once again, in that next moment, I went, yes, I can. I can make that shot like that. I can do that. So that's what Coach Williams meant to me, man. If you could get what I'm saying through those 2 stories, that's what he meant for me in my career. I come from humble beginnings, Prince George's County. We got crazy hard coming from that county, trust me. But he just took me to such another level that it was just like, man, it was unbelievable what I believed about myself because of the things that he would say or he would do.
Right. I guess, between when it comes to Coach Williams, and obviously he spoke very highly of you when he came on, but also, the current coach and Kevin Willard, do you see, I'm sure you get to spend a little more time behind the scenes with Coach Willard, and kind of like get a sense of who he is as a person and as a coach. Do you see similarities between the two at all? And what do you think is the biggest difference, I guess, between him and Turgeon of the past that, maybe is going to prove different for Maryland fans?
Well, I'll tell you this. With Coach Williams, he just had that energy about him. He was very aggressive, and he was going to show it to you. He wore that on his sleeve. But he had a good sense of who he could push like that and who he couldn't. And so I think that, as a player, you don't like to get yelled at, and you don't like to see your teammates get yelled at. But it was a respect of the energy level that he was bringing to the game. We playing in a game, and then you look over there on the side, and his underarms, and I mean, was drenched over there, his jacket, and I mean, just sweating crazy over there. And you think to yourself, my goodness, this dude is working hard as crap out here. And so you think, well, I'm in between these lines. Absolutely, I got to bring that energy just like that, And so I think that what's similar with him and Coach Willard is I think that both of them guys have that type of aggressive energy, but they know when to turn it on, when to turn it off, who to turn it on with, who to turn it on, turn it off with. And I think that because they understand those gauges, they inspire guys, Also, what I think is similar is adjustments. I think Coach Williams is very good in that, underrated in that as a matter of fact, in adjustments that he would make on the fly. I think Coach Willard showed that, I'm only watching for 1 year, but in that first year, it was just things that I could see that, you're adjusting. Not necessarily it's because it's the way you see the game, but it's the way I see the game. And now I have these kind of players here, and these are their best assets. So let me put them in the best positions on that. So adjustments on that respect, but then also in game when things are happening there, and then making adjustments in game. I wanted to do things one way, but things are not working out right. It ain't going the way we playing. So now we're going to do it this way. And, and then possibly another adjustment. So I see the similarities in them in that way. The difference I see in Coach Willard and say Turgeon is that, Turgeon was mild-mannered, very, very reserved, laid back, but he was very competitive still, but it just was, it came out in different ways. I think that when we would interview Coach Turgeon, he was very honest in the sense that if we were asking things, he would say, he might say, this particular player didn't perform to what we wanted him to do, or that, or things like that. And I think that sometimes you absolutely want to be honest with the press, but sometimes you got to be more protective of your team, I think, and kind of put it in a more of a lane of we, type of thing, more so than not. And I think that, more times than not, he would single guys out sometimes. And it was correct. It wasn't incorrectly singling guys out, but I just think that now as a player, you internalize that. And I don't think that, the team, like, you need that extra push, that extra effort that you want to give for your coaches. And I don't know if every player had bought into Turgeon and what was going on there. I don't know that about Coach Willard yet either, but I know from seeing last season, the way those guys played on the defensive end, you could see that they were overachieving because of the effort they was given. And most of the time, when you're talking about effort, that comes from what your players want to give for your coach.
Yeah. Well, I have a game for you to kind of wrap up this episode in terms of this season. I'm going to give you some stats and some narratives, and I want you to tell me either yes or no, depending on the question, or over or under. You'll be able to kind of tell what type of thing. So, I know these might be hard to kind of think about and contextualize, but I'm gonna hit you with them because I know you're a smart guy.
Absolutely, it's gonna be tough because I am not a gambler, but we're gonna make it happen. Let's do it.
All right. So last season, Maryland put up 6.7 threes a game. This season, do you think they go over or under that number in terms of attempts?
Oh, I think it'd be a safe bet to say over. I think they have better shooting. And so as a result, if you have more guys who are shooters on the floor, you're gonna get more shots. So yes, I think you had creative guys shooting a lot of shooting threes last year. So shooters are going to shoot more. Over.
Okay. Starting off with an over. All right. The next question I have is Jameer Young last season, was first team All Big Ten and kind of came in there. Do we think that Maryland gets another member onto the either All Big Ten first or second team?
You said other than him or just one?
I think Jameer's pretty a safe bet, but other than him.
Yes. I think Juju has that chance. It's about the step that he takes. Does he take the step? Two things. I think offensively, just adding a little bit more, being a little bit better around the basket, and a little bit of a face game. But I don't want to see that too much right now. But more importantly, getting a defensive feel for what's going on, anticipating so that he won't get in foul trouble as much. So keeping him on the floor, if he can stay on the floor consistently and get into that rhythm, I think by staying on the floor, he will get into that rhythm. So I think that he's a guy who will also be a Big Ten, on a Big Ten team.
Okay. So last season, you talked a little bit about the rotation and guys. Maryland played around an average of 8 guys with serious minutes, 3 off the bench, and Martinez, a million, and Jahari Long. This season, do we think they play over or under that number of consistent rotation men?
Did you say 8?
8. So set the line at 8.5. You think they hit the over or under on that?
I mean, you know what? I think at the end of the day, I think that's a coach's philosophy. So I think that regardless of how talented the team is, I think that his philosophy is to have that rotation at the 8-9 mark. So I think it stays the same. Is it one for staying the same? What we got? Or are my only 2 choices over under?
And we'll call the push. Say around 8.
Yeah, we go. We go with the push there.
Okay. Then this is a yes or no one. By the end of the season, do we think there are 2 freshmen in the starting lineup?
I think it's a high probability. 1, 2. I'm gonna go yes. Okay. Before the season ends, yes. We're gonna have Dante out there, Juju. Yes, we're gonna have 2. We're gonna have two freshmen.
Okay. Jamie Kaiser and Harris Smith. I'm putting put your foot in. They should put me in Vegas for these lines.
We calling it right now, man.
Oh, let's go. All right, last 2 for you. Last season, Maryland had obviously a couple win over some ranked teams, but struggled immensely on the road. This is kind of a over-under in terms of, do you think that they're able to pull a road ranked win this season? Do you think that they're able to kind of recover from last year's road struggles and maybe pull out a victory against a ranked opponent on the road?
Absolutely. You want me to tell you why? Because I think that the team will continue its defensive prowess, right? So that's what had the consistency going at home. Defense travels. So they played well on defensive end too, for the most part. But offensively, man, they were just so up and down offensively, and that's what got them in trouble for the most part on the road. I think that challenge will not be one for them this season. Once again, earlier, like I said, I think they have a combination of guys who can get busy out there, off the dribble, create, but then they have shooters. Then they have young shooters that go with the creators. And so now I think that you can be more consistent on the road because the element of defense. I think that they have that. And so now it's just about offensively, what can you bring to the table? And now I think that they can be a little bit more consistent offensively because of the addition of the shooters.
And then last 2 for you. Maryland was picked to finish 3rd in kind of the unofficial preseason Big Ten poll. If I set the line for their finish at 2.5, so they're finishing, 2.5 in the Big Ten standings, are you saying they finish higher or lower than that?
Wait a minute. Who they have at 1 and 2?
Purdue and Michigan State are kind of the clear 2. I think Maryland got 304 points. Illinois was the next closest at 4 with 301, but Michigan State at 2 had 368. So they clearly think there's a drop off between the top 2. Do you think they rise above that, or do you think they kind of fall below the 3 to 4 line, maybe 5 even?
So you're going to have to rely on some freshmen. Freshmen are going to have to be impactful. Guys who have not been in this position before are going to have to be impactful. For that reason, I'm going to say that if you said the line is 2.5,
Yeah.
we're going to stay below that. And
Okay.
I'm seeing them at 3, 4 in that area. But yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if they're at 2 if they can surpass a Michigan State. Like I said, the young guys are talented, but the element of you don't know and they've never been in the fire before at this level, you got to take that into consideration.
Okay. And then last one for you. Does Maryland make it to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament?
Yes, I think by that time they should be rolling, man. I think that they can get as far as Sweet 16, man.
So are we going to see Walt Williams calling a Final Four game? Is that what I'm hearing?
If they there, I'm gonna be riding there with them. Trust me.
Are we? And then last one, are we going to get a Walt Williams court storm call, or is that over? Babies are over that.
Now that's over. I've been out here shooting. I'm just coming off a leg injury. I broke my leg. I got like a plate and 9 screws in my leg, man. So no more running around just purely spot shooting jumpers. That's it.
I don't change the jumper now, the Wizard. Come on.
No, sir. No, sir.
Still shooting. Well, thank you. Thank you again for coming on. We appreciate your time, and we're really looking forward to hearing your calls this year of the men's basketball games.
Oh, man, it's going to be a pleasure, man. Great times out there, so I can't wait to see it.
You heard it here from Walt. You're going to listen to him in a couple of days here in College Park. I think all of us are ready for basketball season. I've been ready for it for a long time. We're excited. Maryland basketball in year 2 of Kevin Willard. They are looking to capitalize on a pretty loaded roster, projected to finish 3rd in the unofficial Big Ten media poll, pretty clearly 3rd behind Michigan State and Purdue. But when's the last time Maryland has had this much juice heading into a season, boys? I mean, I think that they're pretty clearly NCAA tournament locks at this point. What do you guys think? Overall thoughts here before the season tips off? And I got one question for you after you answer. What is your biggest reason for optimism and biggest reason for concern as we head into the season? Mike, if you want to give the optimism and Brendan the concern, that would be wise.
Yeah, like you said, this team has so much juice. I was so surprised when those AP polls came out and they were not ranked. If you think about it, they're returning everybody except for Hakeem Hart. And Hakeem Hart is going to be replaced immediately by Deshaun Harris-Smith. Meanwhile, they have 2 other guys. They have Jonathan Lamont and Jamie Kaiser. They're going to come in, be contributors their freshman season. Then you also bring in Jordan Geronimo from Indiana. Really good guy. He's going to come off the bench for the Terps most likely, bring energy off the bench. The amount of alley-oops and slam dunks you're going to see from this guy, it's going to be all over Twitter. Lots of things to be optimistic about, but the one thing I'm going to choose is what Kevin Willard talked about a lot during media day a couple weeks ago, and it was that this team is much more physical and much more strong this year and much more competitive. 2 guys I'll point out just to back up my point. I'm going to talk about Jordan Geronimo. He's not that tall. He's only 6'6", 6'7", but he adds so much. Willard talked about it. He adds so much physicality. He adds so much versatility to this team. Willard said that he has a lineup where he's going to have Geronimo at the 5 and Dr. Scott at the 4. That's how much versatility he gives. And then Deshaun Harris-Smith, everybody knows he's getting all the buzz out of this freshman class. Kevin Willard's called him the most competitive person he's ever seen at media day. He's a freshman. He has a high competitive spirit. He's a dog. He's going to do wonders for the Terps this year. Brendan?
I'll start with the concern, which kind of goes into the huge positive. The biggest concern is that so much of the hype around this team rests on people who never played in College Park. The 3 freshmen that everybody's been talking about for over a year now haven't played college basketball yet. And if they can't, you can see tape in high school and you can see how they play in practice, but it's always a bit concerning when a lot of the hype of a team rests on those freshmen. We've seen it with teams that, like Duke, who bring in so many freshmen, they're ranked, 3rd in the country, and then their season isn't that great of a success because those freshmen just can't rise to the level. So that's the biggest concern, that, Maryland could have a slow start, but I do have confidence that those freshmen will get into their roles and be huge contributors. And the biggest positive I see is that this roster is a national championship roster. And I say that because if you look at the teams that have won a national championship, they're all built on having a lot of people who have been on that team for a while. They have a lot of seniors. They have a lot of, fourth, fifth year guys, especially going back to the COVID, people were staying. And they also have a bunch of young studs. And so it's going to be up to how those guys play to see how far Maryland makes it.
Yeah, I'm kind of in between. I'm in between on where both of you are. I don't know about national championship, but I do think that this is probably second weekend caliber roster, like Sweet 16 type of thing. So like if you have that in Kevin Willard's second season, I think that that's probably a good thing. And I think one thing to point out, Brendan, when you talk about the early season struggles, if you look at the schedule, I think it lends more favorably than other teams we've talked about. I mean, really the only notable game is Villanova at Villanova, which will be a tough test, but rematch with Hakeem Hart. Nova's not great though. I mean, they weren't amazing last year. They can definitely win that game, but other than that, I mean, it's pretty much a clear shot until December 1st when they play Indiana in Bloomington. So I think that that's something that you'll have time for Harris Smith, a Jamie Kaiser, a Jameer to kind of get settled in, to kind of ease into it. But I think that's one of where I also want to say is I don't think they're going to have as much trial for error in the Big Ten. You're going to have to win more games in the Big Ten than you did last year because you have a very strong non-conference schedule, right? So they're not going to have a win against a St. Louis or I'm trying to think of who else they played in those early non-conference games last year.
Miami, who ended up making it pretty far.
Yeah, exactly, Miami. So you're not going to have those resume builders, but you definitely should have a better record at the very least.
We talked about no room for error in the Big Ten. I think one thing that Willard brought up at Media Day, kind of surrounding that, was that Jordan Geronimo, he brings so much experience to this team from the Big Ten. I mean, like
Jordan Geronimo, my man. Mike is on the Jordan Geronimo train.
Mike, is Jordan Geronimo a starter?
No, he could start. If Jamie Kaiser doesn't start, it'd be Jordan Geronimo. But I can envision Willard having him come off the bench and play big time minutes off the bench, and he can plug him in anywhere. He can play. He can defend 1 through 5. He can play 3 through 5 on offense.
Jordan Geronimo is a friend of the pod, so I have nothing but love for the man. But at the end of the day, he has to shoot better than what he did in Bloomington, or else he can't see the floor as much as what you're hyping him up to be. So that's
Donta Scott said he's shooting well at practice. Donta Scott told me he's shooting well.
What is Donta Scott going to say? Yeah, this guy can't shoot. Like, what are we doing? I mean, obviously it's the preseason. But the numbers don't tell you that Geronimo is a great shooter. And I'm not saying that can't change. Like, it's very possible. He's shown some mid-range stuff, but at the end of the day, once guys get to their 4th, 5th year of college, you kind of know what they are at that point. And so
that's why you bring in a Jonathan Lamont on the freshman class, who is a marksman off the bench for them.
And a Kaiser. Like, they have shooting. It's just like, I think they have more knockdown guys. So I think that it's an interesting blend of a roster. They're definitely a more physically well-built team. You're not having a 6'8" Patrick Emilian be your backup center. So I think that's very interesting. And a point to that in terms of, kind of the lineup shifting, you can play a much bigger lineup now at this point. I mean, if they want to shift up a Donta Scott to the small forward and play a Geronimo, I mean, Scott, for example, in an article in The Athletic, he was averaged 0.902 points per possessions on post-ups. But think about how much better he can be if he's posting up now like wings compared to power forwards, right? Like, he's posting up against a 6'4", 6'5" small forward versus some of the bruisers that we know the Big Ten has. Plus, if Donta can shoot it as well as he has been in certain years, I think that he could be in line for a much better season than he had last year.
One player I want to talk about that I don't think anybody's talked about is Jahari Long. With Ian Martinez leaving in the offseason, Jahari Long is going to have a massive role coming off the bench for Jameer. Like, he has to play well in that role. Reserve point guard, he has to do well and set, he kind of sets the tone for that bench unit.
Yeah, this roster is well-rounded. I think if you look at who's played, right, they have 15 guys. Chance Stevens not going to play this season. He had an injury. But other than that, 14 guys, 2 walk-ons. So you have 12 guys. A lot of those guys have a ton of experience or played in games last year, right? Noah Batchelor, I mean, played some minutes last year. Guys that, if you need people to come off the bench, I think this roster is very well-rounded. How much of those guys really play, near the bottom of the depth chart, I don't know. But having a team that is very solid from, 1 to 9 is going to be very helpful for Willard Scott's squad.
I think that the starting lineup last year was better, but I think the overall roster construction this year is much better.
What's the difference between last year and this year? Is it just Hakeem Hart and
I think people are underrating the Hakeem loss. I think that he was that
DHS is going to be so much better than him this year.
I just disagree. There's a reason the guy was getting offers from Gonzaga, Villanova, Miami. The teams like a versatile wing like him. He was a secondary ball handler. He also was a senior. DHS is just a freshman. I'm not saying Harris Smith won't have a good year. It just is going to take time, and I don't know if he's going to reach the Hakeem Hart's level by the end of the season. I mean, he maybe very well could, and he probably will have a better career than Hakeem had here, but I think people underrate that. And then I also think that I just have this nagging feeling, and this kind of goes into one of I wanted to hear hot takes from all three. We're in podcasting, so hot takes are at hand. I just have this weird feeling that Jahmir Young is not going to have as good of a season as he did last year. I don't know what it is. The numbers say he was a great guard. He's probably the best. He's easily the best guard in the Big Ten, unanimous all Big Ten first team. I don't know what it is. I just don't see it as coming as easily as it did. He went through a stretch last year where he wasn't great. I think teams are really going to sit on his left hand this year. They have a full year of scouting. I think the team will be better. I just don't know if Jahmir is a number one option on a great team. And I know that's narrative talk, but that's just my where I'm at. And I have no explanation for it. It's just a gut feeling.
I think he has the potential to be better. You said teams have 1 year of scouting against him. He now also has 1 year of experience in the Big Ten after playing at Charlotte for 3 years. He knows the league. He knows how physical it is. He knows how much better it is than the competition he was facing at his old team. I think he's going to come much more well-adjusted.
It's hard to say. I think he will play a slightly smaller role on the team just because I think he has more help this year on the offensive side of the ball in terms of guard play. He had to do so much last year in some of those big games to give Maryland a chance to compete. And I just don't think he'll have to do as much. So I kind of see why you have that feeling there, Sam. That does make a little bit of sense, honestly.
Yeah, because I think DHS is going to take a lot of on-ball reps. They're going to give him the rock out of pick and roll, and they're going to want to get Reese post-ups, more so this year, you would think. Willard talked about how he wants to see guys, not only the team be good, but individually have good years so they can go to the league, right? Like Adonta, Jamira, Julian. Those guys, he's all said, I want them to put themselves in the best position for the league. I think that lends credence to the idea that he's going to want to let guys show off their individual game a little. And I think that probably means it's a little more spread out than what it was last year.
So at the end of the year, both of you guys answer, who is going to be the leading scorer for the Terps? Is it still Jahmir, or do you think somebody else? Maybe Juju at DHS?
No, I think that's pretty obviously Jahmir. I know that, but he's just going to take the most shots.
I completely agree with that. I think he's going to by far score the most points, but I don't know if he'll be the most valuable player. I think the most valuable player will be Julian Reese. I've never heard Kevin Willard say a bad thing about him, but not even just that. You look at the growth he had from year 1 to year 2. I think if he makes even half of that jump, Willard talked about it, but his freshman year, he was, under a very odd system, shooting threes. I mean, Maryland fans are thanking God that he actually stayed in College Park with a new coach. So with all that, in mind, he is kind of the cornerstone of the success of this team. And I think we partially saw that last year as well. The game that he played very well in and didn't get into foul trouble in, Maryland was able to compete, and especially in a league like the Big Ten when he played, against Purdue, played Zach Edey so well. That was a huge factor in Maryland pulling off that big upset.
Yeah, I think that I would agree. I think Juju is in line for a big year. And I think that Maryland has a good core here and going on. I guess I have a couple of games for you guys. I want to hear where you guys are at. So I'm going to ask you a couple of key questions. And I want you to answer all of these with a little bit of entertainment here for our audience, because these are some superlatives. I'm going to start off with, what is this team's biggest game on the schedule? The one game where, win or lose, you think it's going to say a lot. College basketball is a long season, but I think last year the Purdue game obviously spoke a lot about them. What is the game this year that you're looking at as, okay, this, I'll know kind of where Maryland's at depending on this result?
It's not a Big Ten team, but it is a Big Ten team. UCLA, probably the worst loss, at least the way it felt for Maryland basketball last year and in many years. Just such an odd game. Maryland came in after all those, playing big opponents tight, had that game against Tennessee, and then came in against UCLA in College Park and just played awfully, like truly a terrible game in the middle of finals week. It was not pretty. And I think that everybody who was on the roster definitely still has a sour taste in their mouth. UCLA came into College Park and spoiled that home game. Now Maryland has a chance to go do that. I think it's a game that Willard definitely sorted on the calendar.
January 21st, right at the tail end of winter break, number 4 currently ranked Michigan State will come to College Park. I think that's their first big test at home for them. It's going to say a lot about the team.
Are you just saying that because they're wearing those super cool jerseys for that game?
Maybe that too. Also why I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Also, if we want to talk about scheduling, how about them getting Michigan State and Purdue during winter break when none of the students will be home?
Yeah,
That's very sad.
Yeah, that's tough. And Maryland last year obviously had a great home record, so that leads right into my next question. Over or under 3.5 conference road games the Terps win this year? A little easier bit of a slate, but we know they only won 1 road game in the Big Ten last season.
That was so odd, and the way they lost so many of those games was just very ugly. The last, the Penn State game, I think, just the weird rebounding stuff at the end. And if you look at their away schedule, I think they probably get, I'm going to say 6 Big Ten road wins.
Yeah, I would say over 2. Their schedule's a lot lighter this year.
Okay, so we're going to over 2, Mike. I said 3.5, but okay.
Over 3.5.
So
I was saying I'm going to take over, comma, TOO. 2.
got it.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so both of you guys are confident in the ability to win away from home. Okay, my next question. Does this team shoot better than 36% from 3 overall as a squad? Now, generally what you consider good is, like, as a team, 36 to 39 is pretty good. They lose some shooters. I mean, Hakeem Hart, Ian Martinez, for as much hate as he got, was a pretty good 3-point shooter. Don Carey was probably their biggest threat, I guess, from the outside. What do we think?
I'm going to say they go under that. I don't know if I have a very specific reason for that, but I feel as though this team is just not going to be that much of a 3-point shooting team. And so because of that, I don't think they're going to shoot that well from there.
Based off the way that Willard kept talking about physicality, I think that there's going to be a lot more of an emphasis of playing in and around the paint. So I don't think that the 3 ball is going to be that crucial to their offensive game.
I would say under as well, but I think they're going to need to shoot it. I think you're at least going to have to put it up because as much as we talk about the post physicality, at the end of the day, it's not like they have more size, but they're not overwhelming teams like a Purdue is or a Michigan State with their athleticism in the front court. So you got to shoot it a little. So that's where I would be.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think Willard has constructed this roster to be a team that lives and dies by the 3. Maybe that is what helps teams win in March, but I just don't think that was his vision.
Yeah, me neither. All right. We're a Maryland basketball and Maryland sports podcast when I'm asking questions about the backup center position, but I think this is actually one of the more underrated spots. Who do we think plays more minutes this year? Caleb Swanton Rogers or Matty Troy. I can't pronounce his last name. Matty Troy, I think it is. But the transfer. Who do we think plays more minutes?
I'm going to go Callum Swanson-Roger. He looked very strong in the games he played. I mean, he's pretty much known around campus for that one dunk in that Michigan game. I think he looked pretty strong last year, and I would expect him to play a lot of minutes. I don't think he's going to play that many minutes. I don't think Matty will play that many minutes either, but I think he takes it on that one.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about Matty. He only played in 7 games last year and averaged 1.4 points. Callum, he's been on the team. He knows the systems and all that. I think he'll get way more playing time.
Oh, really? I would go the opposite. I think Troy is a much better long-term prospect, and for players they're not going to get much minutes, but I think you kind of go for the upside is where I would stand. So, but I think that's an interesting one. All right, I got 3 more for us. Okay. When is Julian Reese at the end of the season? Is he a first or second team All Big Ten player? Now, before you answer, you have to remember the Big Ten they're actually down this year on bigs. Edey comes back, obviously, but Michigan lost Hunter Dickinson. Illinois lost their top big man. I mean, I think the level of talent, usually the Big Ten is considered a big level conference. Trace Jackson Davis is gone. I think it's down. So I'm curious to know, and do you think he can crack that first or second team list?
I think it's possible with the losses that you said, but also if he's playing a lot of center, he's going to be considered a center. He's 6'9". Probably stick on the second team.
I'm going to say he doesn't make either of those lists, actually.
Oh, wow.
I think he'll have a very good year in terms of Maryland team core play and what that means for the chemistry of the team and how well they play. But I think on a Big Ten and more of a national perspective, the way he's viewed, I just don't think all the statistics are going to be there, which is oftentimes a big indicator of how you do in some of those first team, second team stuff. So I would say he's actually not going to be on any of those.
Okay, interesting. All right, next question. I think that this Maryland team is, I think, bound for the tournament. I think we can all agree. What is one reason why you could see them not making the tournament, or like a first round upset? And then what is one reason you could see them making the Elite Eight?
One reason I could see them not making the tournament is because they don't have an insane superstar who will pull them out of games where they play poorly in. We talked about it in last episode with the football team. Good teams win games, and to win those games, you need a superstar, especially in basketball. I don't think Maryland has that caliber of a player to do that. So that's a reason, I could just see them really struggling, and it's unlikely they wouldn't make the tournament, but that would be my reason for that. And then I think a reason they make the Elite Eight would just be this team has so many veterans that have played so many seasons in College Park and so many seasons of college basketball that they know in tournament games what to do by now, and they're going to get the freshmen to that level, and they could, make that run.
I'm going to start on the optimistic side. I'm going to say the reason that they could make it to the Elite Eight is the freshman class. A lot of hype over DHS. If he does pan out and is that type of star that the talks are kind of brewing up right now, him plus Jameer in a backcourt, that could be the best backcourt in the country. If DHS actually pans out, him and Jameer Young could be the best backcourt. Why they wouldn't make the tournament or flail out in the first round is kind of what Brendan said, no star power, but I'm going to take something different. I'm going to go big depth. Talk about physicality. You can add a Jordan Geronimo. You can add a DHS. You can add a Jamie Kaiser who played quarterback. But at some point, size also takes importance. And you look at who's behind Juju Reese. Juju Reese he's listed as a forward right now, a 6'9" forward. But if you look at who's playing behind Juju Reese, you got Matty, who not a lot of time coming into this year. And then you also got Callum Swanson-Roger, who, again, not a lot of time coming into this year. We don't know how developed he is. So if they're playing a team that has a lot of tall depth that could pose major problems for the Terps.
I got two things, Mike. I don't know really what Jamie Kaiser playing quarterback has to do with it.
Physicality.
Okay, so you think he can take a couple hits there in the pocket?
Down two at the end of the game, he's going to throw a pass, and then Christian Leitner is going to appear. And
then also, I would agree. I think the physicality, but my reason for why they don't make the tournament is the spacing. I actually am kind of worried about it. The more and more I think about it, freshmen don't generally shoot great from three their first year unless you kind of come in as like a known shooter only. DSS is a solid shooter, but nothing crazy. Kaiser's a good shooter. You would expect him to shoot well. But, I mean, if Harris Smith doesn't shoot it well, if Scott kind of stays the same level, Geronimo doesn't shoot well, Reese is not a spacing threat. They don't really have a sniper off the bench with Stevens being out. I think it could actually hurt them more than people are thinking. And then my reason that they make it to the Elite Eight or the Final Four even is, and this leads into I think this defense could be very, very good. I think that a 1 through 5, they have pretty positive perimeter defenders. And I just think that Willard institutes a level of defensive floor that I'm confident in, even with those Seton Hall teams. Like they've always had a pretty solid defense. So I would lend to the defensive prowess of this team, kind of handling maybe a couple upsets in the second or third round. And that goes into my last question before a record prediction. At the end of the season, which is more, efficient in stats wise, the defensive rating or the offensive rating?
Defensive rating. It seems like that's kind of what they've built it around, this physicality, defense, playing tough. Seems like that was a major emphasis of Willard heading into this season, and I think the defense is going to ball out.
I'm going to go on the other side there. I'm going to say offensive rating. The games this team looked very strong in last year were the teams that their offense won them basketball games. Their defense did a lot last year, but I think they're going to have very strong offensive performance, and I think Willard knows that. And so with that in mind, I would say that the offensive rating.
Okay, that was it. All right, now in terms of record, I got 3 things. Or 4, actually. Let's go 4. The biggest win they have on the schedule, the most surprising loss, where they finish in the Big Ten, and where do they finish in the NCAA tournament?
Okay, I'm going to go first with biggest loss. I think they lose to Indiana and Penn State. I think they go 0-2 to start Big Ten play. That was the most surprising loss. Biggest win, I think that they are able to beat Michigan State on the 21st. Going to have those jerseys, the special jerseys. It's kind of a lock there for me. Big Ten, I think they finished 3rd in the Big Ten, and then I think they make it to the Sweet 16.
I think they finished 4th in the Big Ten. Second round exit, round of 32. Biggest win, let's see. UCLA at UCLA, is that crazy?
Yeah, that's crazy, but I like it. Crazy is.
I mean, they have a lot of returners from last year. I mean, pride is a big part of this game.
UCLA loses a lot of guys too. Jaime Jaquez, Johnny Juzang. I can't remember. Is Tiger Campbell still there? Let me look for it. He was their point guard. I'm trying to remember if he's still on the squad. He is not. So they lose 3 of their probably 3 best starters. So actually, Mike, I don't hate that.
And then, what was the biggest loss? They're going to do what they do every year and lose a game at Minnesota or where do they play away? There's always a shocker. At Wisconsin, that could be tough. They always lose a game to a conference opponent that they shouldn't on the road.
Well, that's Big Ten basketball too. So I'm going to agree with Brendan. I think 3rd in the Big Ten. I think the Big Ten after the top 2 is kind of a jumble, and I think Maryland comes out of there. I think that they will finish at the Sweet 16. I think they make it to the second weekend, but they lose there. I will say the biggest or most surprising loss, I'm going to say they lose at home to Rutgers. I think Rutgers is going to be solid this year, and I think that their defense kind of will give Maryland trouble. And then the most impressive win on their schedule, Mike, the more I think about it, the more I kind of like the UCLA pick, but I'm not going to pick something that you did. So I'm going to say they run it back. They beat Purdue again at home in College Park, round 2. Hopefully no court storming, though, because Maryland should be good enough at that point.
When we're talking about like postseason play in the recent ESPN projection, it had them as an 8 seed, and they would meet Duke in the round of 32. So right now it's being projected to have the same sort of finish as last year.
Yeah. Anyway, so those were our record prediction. That was our Maryland basketball preview. I think fans are super excited for this year. I know we are excited to talk about it. You can continue to find our coverage all season long here at Under the Shell. Before we get out of here, we got to go to our weekly segment. Terrific Terp. Take it away, B.
I did it for the women's basketball episode. I'm going to do it for this episode as well. We're going to stick with a basketball Terrific Terp. The university has had many athletes from the men's basketball team go on to become stars, but very few have become stars in the journalism and the basketball world. One of those greats was Len Elmore, who played basketball at the University of Maryland from 1971 to 1974. His basketball championship success came early on in his career when he was on the number 1 high school team in 1970, where he attended Power Memorial Academy in New York City. He wasn't always known for putting the ball in the basket, but he was always known for recovering the ball after missed shots. That's right. Elmore had more rebounds in his career at Maryland than he did points. His 1,053 rebound mark still remains the all-time Maryland high in total and in game average. Elmore was an All-American center in 1974 and helped lead the team to an NIT championship in 1972. After his career at Maryland, he went on to do 2 impressive feats. 1, get drafted into the ABA in 1974, and graduate from Harvard Law School after his professional playing career in 1987. Elmore was drafted by the Washington Bullets in the ABA, but played for the Indiana Pacers in his rookie year. He played in the NBA for 10 years, where he continued to be a force on the boards, but in the NBA, he had more points than rebounds. After the NBA, he used his Philip Merrill College of Journalism degree to become a color commentator. His most famous call was the East Regional NCAA tournament final between Duke and Kentucky. Kristen Leitner hit his famous game-winning turnaround jumper. Elmore was a basketball broadcaster for 31 years until 2017. He went on to teach classes at the University of Columbia and become president of the NBA Retired Players Association. He was a pioneer in so many facets of the basketball world, just enough, in fact, to earn this week's Terrific Terp.
Len Elmore was a legend. My dad and I used to always love listening to him. So that was a good Terrific Terp. And what a career. I mean, guy goes from basketball to journalism to teaching at Columbia. I mean,
Harvard law degree. I mean, this guy did everything.
Gotta love the journalism tie-in. And hopefully 40 years from now, we'll be saying that Ryan Howerton, that Terrific Terp journalism thing. Last week, he said that he wants to do sports journalism. So we'll see what happens.
In the same spot, we're bringing him on the pod 40 years from now. But that'll wrap up this year's and weekly episode of Under the Shell presented by Testudo Times. A little bit of a word trip there. But you can find all of our episodes at Under the Shell, wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, you name it. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram at Under the Shell. Keep paying attention for content. Keep listening. Basketball season's right around the way. We'll have your coverage all year long, weekly episodes with great interviews. So continue listening, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Have a good rest of your day. Xfinity Center's lighting up soon.
Guess what? You've got Under the Shell podcast. Nobody does it better.